People
I,
said is
that is
the
that is
That
something
is,
I
yes,
can never
I
give up.
agree with you. I agree with you. He will steal the mic when he should not. So I see that you come from a methodology and a very structured way of thinking. I would therefore request you to, steer the discussion as we go along.
yes,
Of
yes,
course,
very much. Thank you.
she's officially a moderator and anchor and whatever you want to call her.
Yeah, only officially. Otherwise, you are the.
No, I think I'll do just a brief introduction and then the get into better.
Yes, I think let's start. We already have quite a few people
Okay.
join.
Thank you. Okay, then I think let me start. And thank you, Chitrakshi. I think dear friends and colleagues. Well, I'm very delighted that after an unplanned and unintended vacation, when we were off the circuit and we're not organizing webinars, we are back on the track with 120th episode in the webinar series on Rethinking City. 120th. I'm also happy that we are restarting, so to speak, with a webinar on Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Urban. And I must tell you why I'm not saying PMAY, but Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana is because I sent an invite to a friend yesterday to join this webinar, and he immediately wrote back saying, what is PMAY? So I thought, I think it's good to kind of elaborate that PMAY is Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. It is also an added advantage that this webinar on PMAY is being moderated by Dr. Debarpita Roy of SCEP. Let me also elaborate it, the Center for Socioeconomic Progress, who has done with a colleague a remarkably thoughtful study of the outcome of Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Urban, the first now because there's second, so we have to say first. And it's quite a privilege that we have that study as the backdrop of this webinar. And therefore, thank you, Debarpita ji. Thank you, Rashmi ji. And of course, thank you, everyone. So that's it. We are also fortunate in having a distinguished panel for today's event. Besides Debarpita ji, we have a colleague at the center, Rashmi ji, who will assist Debarpita ji in presenting their findings. We also have my very good friend of long time, over 40 years, Suresh ji?
Yeah, 40 plus.
Okay, Shri V. Suresh, we are ancient, not even old, who has done more for public housing in this country in multiple capacities and multiple ways than many other stalwarts put together in this field. And I really believe this. And I'm not praising because he's sitting there. I'm grateful to Hariji, my another dear friend, who continues to contribute to housing in many creative ways. Hariji is vastly talented and hugely committed and has experimented with innovative ideas and projects. We also have benefit of the presence of Sri Kalyanaraman, co-founder of CEO of Virtual Skill, who is going to enlighten us on the innovative ways in which the housing finance could be brought in and managed.
Very good.
We are therefore in for quite a learning experience and a rich exchange. And thank you all for your kindness in making time for this. And I really mean it when I say this. While on Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, and before I forget it,
Boomer.
let me also make an announcement and also a request for your participation. On the day the budget was announced by Union Finance Minister, where 10 million more houses under Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana urban, and 20 million, I shouldn't forget that, and 20 million more under Pradhan Mantri Gramin Awas Yojana. Even though we're not talking about it, it's very important to know, understand it. I wrote after this, immediately after this budget, I wrote to a few friends and colleagues saying that instead of waiting for another 5 years for the scheme to be implemented and then pointing out how could it have been done better and how could it have been improved, its delivery and performance, why don't we do it now, at this point, when the scheme is starting? I told them that 12 million houses have been built already in the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana 1, and we know enough as to what needs to be done to improve it and further strengthen it. I got a positive and enthused response, and as a result, we have set up a small group that is working on the ideas and suggestions as to what is needed to be done to improve delivery and the final product of the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. The idea is to submit to the government and the implementing organizations and agencies new ideas and suggestions to consideration for better performance on the ground. We have started work, but there is a long way to go. I use this opportunity when many interested persons, professionals, and agencies are present to invite them to join this effort, and I really mean it. Please connect with me or any of my colleagues, Bomaji or someone else at INHAF to join. We need more people and more ideas. And it will be a privilege to have you work on this idea, PMAY-2 and its guidelines. So this is my request to join this initiative that has started. And this is very much on Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana that we're talking about. We believe that Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana is a good housing project. With 4 verticals, it has been thought through in its multiple options and has been implemented rather well in the last 5 years. It has a scale and a countrywide presence. Talking to people who have benefited, we have heard many positive things on this project. 10 million more houses for the cities would mean a lot, and therefore any effort that strengthens the government initiative is most welcome. It is in that spirit of strengthening that this evaluation, which we are discussing, has been done, and in this webinar and many others that will follow after this essentially has the same spirit of strengthening the effort, because cities need such projects, people need such projects, less income people need such projects, and the market needs such projects. They need to be big, they need to be planned and implemented well, and they must ensure better living environment to the people for whom they are meant. And they must add to the livability, inclusivity, and welfare dimension of our cities. And my last paragraph. With this long introduction of today's topic, if I also take time to introduce the webinar series on Rethinking City, I'll be doing injustice to you and this distinguished panel who have a lot to say. Therefore, let me tell you briefly that this webinar series is based on 7-part understanding. That includes 1, India's urban challenge is vastly complex and difficult. 2, that our understanding of it is worryingly inadequate. That the response to the challenge thereby is less than what it should be. 4, that reflects in the quality of cities that we have. 5, that government alone cannot deal with this challenge on its own. 6, there is an impressive pool of talent and knowledge outside the government system and also willingness to contribute. And 7, the country needs a broad-based societal partnership, government plus others, to handle the complex urban challenge. And this webinar series is a small, highly inadequate, but much needed effort to make the multiple dimensions of the urban challenge to the people. It's a small contribution to forge the much needed societal partnership. Thank you very much. And over to Debarpita ji now. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Kirti sir, for such a vivid and motivating introduction.
Kirti, you forgot to introduce Dr. Bhuma Raman.
No, I think I'll never forget her because she never allows me to forget her.
No, you didn't talk about it. Tell about it.
Yeah.
You didn't want to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
No issue.
Okay. Thank you so much. And we will straight away start with the way it is structured today is that me and Rashmi will make a very short presentation, rather tell you the story that we have through our very rigorous methodological analysis of the PMAY-U data that has been put out in the public domain by the government of India itself. So if you go and visit the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana urban website, you will find that all the data that we have used in our study to be there. We have just taken that data down and analyzed it very minutely and very, very rigorously. And we have the story that emerges from that is one that is full of rich insights, at the same time reinforcing certain very strong understanding that not only this panel, but all you urban enthusiasts probably have about the low income housing ecosystem and the dynamics that play in the market. So without further ado, let me just start the presentation. So Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Urban is the first phase, had 5 verticals or sub-schemes, right? 2 of them were the demand side sub-schemes and 3 of them were the supply side sub-schemes. By demand side sub-schemes, I mean that the subsidy is given directly to the household. By supply side sub-scheme, I mean that the subsidy is being given to the implementing agency or the supplier of housing. So the household is not constructing or developing the house itself. And the implementing agency of the supplier developer is given the subsidy and is expected that he will sell or rather pass it on to the beneficiary at a mandated price or beneficiary share. And that is mandated. That beneficiary share is fixed by the state government or in consultation with the ULB. We have the first and the most successful, as Rashmi will very quickly explain, was the beneficiary-led construction, wherein the central government gave a subsidy of 1.5 lakhs per household, and which was the state government also had a state share. It was added to it, and I think on an average, the total subsidy, the central government's share and the state government share made up about 2.5 lakhs. So you have a small, imagine you are a household, and all these schemes, apart from the CLSS scheme and the ARHC scheme, as we will see, targeted economically weaker section household, especially BLC and AHP. Economically weaker section household is, as per the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs under PMAY-U, is any household whose annual income is rupees 3 lakh or less. And so you are a EWS household, you have a small plot of land, and the government is now going, and you might be having a kacha house on that, you might be having a semi-pakka house on that, but you do not have a pakka house on that, or you do not own a pakka house anywhere else in the country, including rural areas, then the government, you are eligible for a BLC subsidy, right? The government and the state government together gives you about 2.5 lakh, and then you put in your own money and you construct a 30 square meter, 2-bedroom kitchen and functional latrine and, bathroom with a house with electricity and running water. So that was how the BLC was envisaged and has been a rather stellar performer under the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana. The Credit Link Subsidy Scheme, CLSS, was a purely central sector scheme, as in the state government did not have any monetary role to play in that. The entire subsidy was given by the central government. And you take a home loan, again, you are either a EWS or a LIG, that is a household which is earning between 3 lakhs to 6 lakhs annually, or a MIG, a household which is earning between 6 lakh to 18 lakhs, and you take a home loan, you do not have a house, you're the first time, you're purchasing a house in your life or building a house in your life, and against that home loan, you are eligible for a subsidy. Okay. Then comes the supply side subsidy. Affordable housing in partnership was envisaged as simply, construction of EWS flats, either as a standalone project or as a part of a bigger project, and the supplier or the developer was given a subsidy. Now, mostly what we see is the implementing agency, while the government did want to, in a big way, bring in the private sector, but as we will go along, we will see it really didn't happen. And most of these houses in most states, barring one, actually were constructed by the, developed by the state housing boards and parastatals. The in situ slum redevelopment is a very standard, format of slum redevelopment through land monetization on very high land value per parcels. There are some states which tried, innovative method of this, but they were very, few and far between projects. The ARHC scheme, which we do not talk about much, was the smallest sub-scheme rather. It was visual conceptualized in the aftermath of the huge reverse migration of COVID, and is basically a social rental housing scheme. It was envisaged as that. Over to you, Rashmi, for the broad trends.
Sure. I'll just confirm first. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure. If you could change. Yes. So now let me walk you through some of the key insights that has emerged from our study. The first one being BLC was the main driver behind PMAY-U's large number of sanctions. The substantial number of sanctions under PMAY-U has been largely fueled by the BLC subscheme, which alone accounted for 62% of the total sanctions. And if you see, together with CLSS, make up a notable 83% of all PMAY-U sanctions. So why this popularity of BLC and CLSS? There are two main reasons. First, these are demand-side subschemes, meaning households receive direct cash transfers, allowing them to add to their own resources and make housing choices that match their preferences, whether in terms of location or design. This flexibility aligns with households' unique needs and priorities. Second, demand-side schemes like BLC and CLSS are generally simpler to implement. Unlike supply-side schemes, they don't require implementing agencies to procure land or manage construction projects, which often face delays and complexities. This simplicity has made them more accessible and easier to deploy at a larger scale. Then again, this had a strong ramification on the kind of cities that PMAY-U could cover, which we will come to in a little while. The next slide, please. The second key takeaway is the impact of state government's involvement. Housing, as you know, is primarily a state subject. So the success of PMAY-U largely depends on alignment with each state's housing policies and programs. Where state governments integrated PMAY-U into their own housing initiative, the program received an additional push, driving up sanction numbers significantly. In this chart, we see that 9 key states make up about 80% of the PMAY-U's total sanctions. It is important to note that these 9 states represent 68% of India's urban population as of census 2011. Notice how Andhra Pradesh and Uttar Pradesh are at the top. Andhra Pradesh's alignment with PMAY-U was facilitated by 2 major state housing schemes. First, the NTR housing scheme, which was dovetailed with the AHP subscheme to build flats, and later the YSR Congress's housing initiative, which aligned with BLC to provide plots and housing. In Uttar Pradesh, on the other hand, BLC sanctions soared 28 times in 2017, following when the current government came to power and a focused push for PMAY-U was envisioned. This momentum speaks to the state government's commitment. Similar things have happened in Maharashtra, Karnataka, Tamil Nadu, and the other states. Interestingly, although CLSS does not require direct state government involvement, Gujarat took a proactive approach. They formed a high-level CLSS monitoring committee, which reviewed progress regularly, resulting in high CLSS adoption rate, an achievement that no other state has matched as per our research. The next slide. Let's turn to the PMAY-U's distributions across different city classes. Before delving further, let me explain the 3 different city categories shown in the chart here. The million-plus cities are those which have a population above 1 million. Medium-sized are those which have a population between 1 lakh and 1 million. And small cities are those which have a population of less than 1 lakh. Now, looking at the distribution of PMAY-U sanctions across these city classes, we observe that sanctions were highest in small cities, primarily driven by the popularity of the BLC subscheme. Small cities accounted for the largest share of BLC sanctions across states. This trend is likely due to 2 main factors. First, higher land ownership among households in smaller cities, and second, a probably higher concentration of EWS household in these areas. Our analysis of the data from the Housing Survey of 2018, NSSO 76th round, supports these observations. In larger million-plus cities where land ownership is less common, BLC becomes less feasible due to high land costs. This would logically create a stronger role for the AHP subscheme to address housing needs. However, as the chart shows, AHP did not significantly fill this gap, suggesting that there were additional barriers which limited its reach in these high-demand urban areas. The next slide. Next, slum coverage was a key focus of the Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Urban, with guidelines stating that all slums within a city should ideally be addressed by at least one of the subschemes. However, the actual impact has fallen short of this goal. As shown here, only about 1.64 million slum households were covered by BLC, AHP, and ISSR combined, making up just 19% of the total beneficiaries under these subschemes. To put these numbers in context, this roughly translates to about 12% of the slum households recorded in the census 2011, the last official data available on slums across India. Finally, let's talk about a critical issue: the significant number of houses that remain to be completed or are delayed. As of May 2024, approximately 40% of the houses sanctioned under BLC, AHP, ISSR, amounting to 4 million homes, still need to be completed to meet the December 2024 deadline of the first phase. Notably, about 1/3 of these pending houses are delayed. For any housing program, including PMAY-U, the true impact is felt only once the sanctioned houses are completed and occupied by beneficiaries. Otherwise, uncompleted projects simply represent unutilized funds and missed opportunities. While delays are common in India's real estate sector, they are particularly concerning within the PMAY-U, given that it primarily serves the EWS households, the most vulnerable group with limited financial resources. Unlike luxury housing, the affordable housing sector has very little flexibility to withstand external shocks, such as increased construction costs or the pandemic-induced delays. For these low-income households, timely delivery is crucial, as any delay can have severe implications for their housing security and financial stability. This has also led to a significant number of cancelled projects, further impacting the program's ability to meet its goal. Now I will hand it over to Dr. Debarpita Roy to move forward with the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rashmi. So as Rashmi pointed out, right, the demands of sub-schemes, both BLC and CLSS, have make up about 83%, more than 4/5 of the overall program. And that leaves out AHP and the in situ slum redevelopment scheme, AHP being the construction of flats meant for EWS households, and in situ slum redevelopment meaning in situ slum redevelopment, as we all know, right? So HP largely made up about more or less, I think 15% of the and in situ slum redevelopment made up about 2%. That's it, right? And now this had very strong repercussions, as Rashmi's city slide showed. That it means that the small cities, cities with the population of 1 lakh or less, were better served, was better served by PMAY-U, could leverage PMAY-U much better than their million-plus city counterparts, right? So it's not a matter to be, it is a matter of serious concern that, okay, how do we, really tackle the problem of housing, urban housing for the EWS and the urban poor in this million-plus cities? And for that, we have to understand what were the limitations which held a scheme like AHP, that is the development of EWS flats, back. It is another very startling statistic that we came up was around almost 50%, half of the sanctioned AHP flats were cancelled. And a significant percentage of the remaining, about 43% of the remaining, were delayed, right? Now, why was that? The reasons that we came up in the various minutes of meeting of the CSMC meeting, the Central Sanctioning Monitoring Committee meeting, and even at state level meetings, minutes of meetings and other official, documentation, was the land disputes and litigation and lack of beneficiary interest. But as Rashmi mentioned, right, that these are EWS flats, right? And that means that the household who is going to live in them has a very limited affordability. In the Indian context, that assuming that you can get a home loan that is 5 times your annual income, that straight away translates for a very high, for a household which is earning 3 lakhs to 15 lakhs. But what is the percentage of really, these households, EWS households, getting a institutional home loans? And our analysis also showed on, using various data sets, that actually the affordability falls by more than half if you do not have access to institutional home loans. So without an institutional home loan, your actually affordability, even for a 3 lakh annual income household, can actually fall down to maybe 7 lakh or below, right? Now, given that that is the affordability, so why EWS flats to AHP like schemes, right, do not take place at scale? It is due to this huge gap, right, between the affordability and between the cost of provisioning of this flat, which necessitates the need for subsidy. So the cost of a flat has to be either be met, the cost of construction of a flat, including land cost or not including land cost, imagining that the land is in a very, super hypothetical situation, that land is given for free. The cost has to be made up of subsidy or beneficiary share, whatever the case, right? And the yellow dashed line that you see, right? All the bars here are the total subsidy that, as per our calculations, which if you look at our paper, is very neatly done in Appendix F, right? As per our calculation, this is the total subsidy requirement, given total cost, which are based on, very strong industry estimates, and the beneficiary share, which is the average beneficiary share as under PMAY-U, which is rupees 3.2 lakhs. Now, based on that, then the subsidy requirement are the bars under the various, scenarios, when land is freely available, when land cost is around 500 rupees per square feet, which, by the way, is again an average of about, the least circle rate at 1.5 FAR for about 7 metropolitan cities in India. We find that there's still a huge gap between the subsidy which is given, which is the yellow dashed line, and the subsidy which is required, which is the area above the yellow dashed line for each of these bars. So how is this being met? The expectation is that this is met through cross-subsidization. But look at the quantum of cross-subsidization that is required. The quantum of cross-subsidization varies from, you can see here, from about 6 lakhs to 12 lakhs per flat, right? So either that amount has to be met through by the sale of a higher priced flat or commercial real estate, right, by the same developer, and it is kind of one is offsetting the other. The luxury project or the commercial project is offsetting the losses from this project, or the state or somebody has to pump in this amount of money. Now, which brings to a very, rather paints a rather grim picture, but it is kind of an impasse in my mind, which we have to, fix. Okay. So the HP financials itself are a very clear indication as to why 50% of HP projects probably had to be cancelled. And imagine if there is any delays, the cost of capital keeps on increasing. The projects anyway goes for a toss, right? And most importantly, the usual discourse that land is the bottleneck. It is the high land cost which is, preventing the development of EWS flats. Really, our calculation negates that. That even if land is available for free, even then subsidization is required, right? Now, given this huge amount of subsidization that is required, it is not, I don't think it's possible for the governments to come together to build EWS flats at the quantum that they require. And that is why the private developers need to, the rather encouragement by the government, the incentives by the government to the private developers. Even under Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana 2.0, a completely different vertical has been, hived off under HP, just targeting private developers. But with this amount of, huge amount of gap in terms of cross-subsidization that is required, again, it's a very, very tall order, right? And something that we as a group of, housing practitioners, researchers, and the civil society is something that we should all mull together and see that, how is it that we could solve it? Now, to take a step further, right? The same financials more or less applies even in the case of in situ ISSR, right? Where the risks are rather compounded, the costs are more because the slum household should be properly housed in transit housing, while the development of the new flats on that slum land is taking place. So, and slum redevelopment as such, of course, they are high risk and, high gain projects. So because of the higher working capital, because of the higher risk involved, getting capital for such projects is also more difficult. And as a result of it, slum redevelopment has been a very slow, complex and contested process. Because the interest of the slum dwellers also have to be taken into account. Their issues of, their preservation of their livelihoods, the preservation of their social networks, the preservation of the tenants, the taking care of the tenants who are there, who do not possibly, qualify for a house under the redevelopment scheme. How do you address that? So these are very, big, complex issues that have to be handled when, and very sensitive issues which have to be handled when some redevelopment takes place. Another, as the Bombay, example teaches us that there are many a times there's the local government, the ULB and the state government, their policies do not kind of, align with each other. As a result of which, again, these projects are very, slow to take off. Even if they take off with a change in government, there's a spanner in the works and it stops, etc., etc. So as a result of which, what we see, the ISSR example under PMAY was no different from what has been ongoing in Maharashtra since the 1980s. And Gujarat over the last 1 decade. Even under ISSR, only these two states saw some amount of activity, some amount of slum redevelopment being taken over. Having said that, ISSR had also kind of subsumed a lot of the projects in all the big metros, Kolkata, Hyderabad, Bangalore, from the Rajiv Awas Yojana under this. But this we do not show on the table here. The table here is only for those, we look at only those projects which were sanctioned only for ISSR, right? Now, so in the big cities, now just contextualize this and imagine this and overlay this on the city class framework. So AHP doesn't really has a lot of issues. Slum redevelopment doesn't really take off. So what really is left for the million-plus city households? It's CLSS, right? Wherein you take a home loan and you get a subsidy on that. But what happens in CLSS is that only 1/5 of the CLSS beneficiaries are actually from EWS households. The lion's share, and encouragingly so, it is LIG households, households earning between 3 lakhs to 6 lakhs. And the rest, about a quarter, is MIG households, right? Now, the definition of MIG has undergone a paradigm change, almost halved in terms of the maximum income from rupees 18 lakhs to 9 lakhs under the phase 2 of the program. And so it's a very, very encouraging development. But the million-plus, even in million-plus cities, which is on the bars, the horizontal bars on the right, you see only 1/5 of the CLSS beneficiaries in million-plus cities are EWS households. So it's very clear that the EWS households in the million-plus cities are probably the worst served, not only under PMAY-U, but probably, so PMAY-U just gives us rather the canvas to look at it at a pan-India scale, because no other housing program has covered India like PMAY-U has done. It is probably the largest housing program in the world, right? And it has covered almost all urban areas of our country. It has the 4,000 plus urban areas, right? Giving the opportunity for such a picture, coherent picture to, emerge rather than, very pointed city level studies, as usually has been the, norm so far. So it is very clear that EWS households in the million-plus cities were the worst. Before I end, I would just like to spend 2 minutes on the BLC sub-scheme. The BLC sub-scheme also had its fair share of issues, but BLC sub-scheme, having said that, was the most successful scheme under PMAY. But there were two issues which were again and again flagged up in the various official documents, which is the land ownership documentation issues. It was difficult for the poor EWS households to get the adequate documentation to prove, or the patta to prove that they are the owners of the plot. And second, they had also beneficiary difficulties in arranging for funds, which we saw very clearly, which happened also in CLSS. Why is it that the EWS households had the least share? Simply because EWS households have the most constrained access to institutional finance, right? Compared to higher income households. They do not have access. If only they have access, if only they can get a home loan from a bank, a HFC or a urban cooperative bank, then only can they avail of the subsidy, right? If they don't have access, how will they avail of the subsidy? The same thing plays out in BLC. The same thing also plays out in AHP, that beneficiaries have difficulty in arranging for funds because they do not have access. Their source of funds is their own savings or loans from their friends and relatives, right? Now, BLC, one very important thing, as Rashmi's slide also earlier showed, that BLC also had tremendous slum coverage potential, and possibly in the best possible manner through in situ upgradation, right? Wherein the households do not have to be moved around. And Jaga Mission in Orissa is a very prime example of that. But again, doing an in situ upgradation scheme might be easier in a smaller city where the land prices are much less as compared to a million-plus city where the land prices are much more, right? There usually we see that the tendency that you do slum redevelopment, so the land is monetized, so the land value is leveraged. And I don't see personally anything wrong in that. is a resource. The value there, the underlying value is a resource which can fund a lot of developmental activity, which can fund a lot of basic services, etc. And one more thing with BLC which happened was the enhancement of existing houses were underleveraged. Now, I will not on purpose go into the way forward here because we have an extremely august panel who are much more experienced and much more wiser to really comment on what should be the way forward given the picture of PMAY first phase that we have painted, right? And with that, I would request Suresh sir to comment that, sir, given that for the development of EWS flats, we need such a huge amount of funds, right? You saw that the cross subsidization need varies between 6 lakhs to 12 lakhs. What are your first thoughts? How is it
First
that
of all,
this can be?
Yeah, I heard what you said. First of all, one major area where no effort has been done is the use of appropriate technologies. They're using the conventional technologies by which the cost of these particular flats have become very high in terms of cost of construction. What they should be able to do, large amount of, there are very good effort of 3 to 4 storied construction or even 5 storied construction, which is done with about 800 to 900 rupees per square feet, where they're all doing 1,800 rupees per square feet with concrete, column, beam, everything using. So therefore, one of the major cost of construction using by builders as well as by the agencies, a housing board or a slum clearance board or a development authority. One area which never in your presentation has been brought on appropriately. Why is the beneficiary-led housing become a big success and you're able to do very well? Because they're able to do with local technologies as well as local skills and all that. When somebody wants to build that using a contractor, an agency, a private sector builder, then suddenly the cost of construction becomes around 2,000 rupees a square feet. You shouldn't do that, especially the weaker section housing and low income, or even low income for that matter. Not only EWS, but also LIG housing also. We should be able to do at very easily at about 1,000 rupees a square feet. There are a large number of technologies available which are strong, durable, functional, which has not been used on that. If that has not happened on that, it's primarily because the cost has gone very high. Now, coming back to your other one, it need not necessarily be the issue related to the subsidy to be enhanced from 1.5 lakhs to maybe of the order of you want to have 2 lakhs or 3 lakhs. Yes, some states have done that. For example, Kerala has done a life project over there for the 1.5 lakh subsidy given. The state itself has put about another about 50,000 rupees added to their particular one. And with loan being given by HUDCO for a large program, a small state like that doesn't figure in your list at all. They've been able to do around 4.5 to 5 lakhs. The house cost is going to 5 to 6 lakhs. The problem is you're pitching at 12 lakhs and 20 lakhs level. And never put all your eggs in a Bombay scenario or a Delhi scenario. That's not India. For heaven's sake, don't do that. Take it into cities which are having even 10 lakhs. You're all taking 1.5, you're taking 1.5 crores population and 2 crores population level, which is Mumbai, which is Delhi. Take into smaller one. Take into areas which are 10 lakhs population, 15 lakhs population, or even about 8 lakhs population. And there's a large number of cities. 500 cities are there. Why you want to go and waste your time onto what you call just seven cities more than 50 lakhs population? Only 7 cities are there which are mega cities. All your problems are in those particular areas. What all you are told, Debarpita, are in cities with more than 50 lakhs population. They are only 7 in number. Only 7. You have large number between what you call 10 lakhs to 50 lakhs and also 1 lakh to 10 lakh. Concentrate there. Concentrate there, and you should be able to find out other ways of solution with crop subsidization coming over there, which that particular cost or an additional cost that is coming over there in very big cities like Mumbai or Delhi or Calcutta or Chennai, where the cost of land is very high over there. Bring in some issues related to subsidizing the land component. That means you should go something like a Rajasthan model, where if you have the land cost available, very clearly they indicate over there. If you do that particular normally for a high income and a commercial, this cost, they will do it 50% of the cost, that land cost over there for the LIG, and 25% for the land cost for the EWS. So if you're able to bring that social orientation in the land cost for such situation over there, probably you're trying to put the market price and say the remaining has got to be covered by them. No, that will not happen. It will not happen. And then you say you don't get that particular money there, and you're caught in a mix over there. So either you do some very interesting effect, leave out the land cost component over there and concentrate on the building technology and cost component, you would have much a major problem. So if you see the total cost of the house over there, the cost of the land has become a bigger component, 40 to 50% coming. Don't do, even in the case of big cities, more than 15% of the cost should be on the land cost, more so for EWS and LIG. So that will be the best example. Possibly, since Kirtibai already mentioned that the government is asking him for the type of views and what shall be done in the PMAY 2.0, and this will be the best one we can suggest. And more so, housing is a big problem in big cities there. If you want to really deal with that particular thing on these two fronts, on making available land cost, not land price, land cost, make available cost of the land for the weaker section low-income housing at 25% of the normal cost and 50% for the low-income group. You have good models available. Rajasthan is the best model there. And that's also a state where good amount of housing scheme has been done under PMAY.
Right. Okay. Just a word for our...
And technologies. Unfortunately, throughout your study, not one word has been told on the nature of technologies required of housing. I am deriving this particularly why the beneficiary-led housing and also the large impact that's happening in nearly 35% in less than 1 lakh and the other one around 40% in the other one. Primarily because people are building their own little house using technology which are available, local mason, they are doing it. They are not bought contractors to come and build that particular thing. It's a beneficiary-led housing on that. I would strongly encourage more and more such type of things to happen if you're able to make it available, but land may not be available. For such particular thing, the intervention from the state government side should be on making available cost of land for the type of flat or whatever at costs which are lower than what they can afford. Because if you want to give the affordable housing, that should be the only, there's no other magic formula. Technology, cost of construction will be crushed from 2,000 rupees per square feet to 1,000 rupees per square feet. Not one word is talked about throughout your report on that, on technologies for housing. And that should be a major thrust area, especially of the weaker section housing, up to 4 to 5 storied houses, and even the low income housing. And we can very easily make it happen. And large number of technologies have been disseminated. Government of India, under the Global Housing Technology Challenge Fund, they have also demonstrated in the same ministry how large number of housing. There are 6 lighthouse projects are already implemented, one in Chennai, one in Rajkot, like different location over there. They're shown demonstrating that it is possible, it's feasible to do that. So a combination, of reducing the actual cost of land and also technologies for the cost of construction.
Absolutely. At this point, I would just like to mention to our participants that please start putting your questions for the panelists in the Q&A box, and I will get to you eventually. Over to you, Hariharan, sir, with a question that while Suresh sir very rightly stressed on the technology for the independent housing, right? And that it can definitely be done in 1,000 or maybe 1,200 rupees per square feet. My question to you is for multi-storied EWS flats in a city like Bangalore, right? What are your views?
I will take a larger look at it. I'll step back and I will respond like this. Kirtibai has a mission. He says, well, I want to give something to the government that will get huge buy-in. Every time I meet a senior bureaucrat, he says, look, or a minister, he says, I will give you 3 minutes. Tell me what I can do about whatever the issue is that I want to take to him. And I will take, therefore, only 3 minutes. Look at the challenge like this. Let's forget all the trees and we have 1.1 crore homes that was built in the previous PMAY scheme between 2015 and 20. Now, let us assume, therefore, that all those were built. Again, in the data showed that about 60 to 65%, that is every 2 families out of 3, clearly wanted owner-driven projects. Across the world, it's the same. Kirtibhai has worked in Northern Province in Sri Lanka. We all know that people are not beneficiaries. They are customers. Who are we to sit here in cities and call them beneficiaries as if they are a statistic? The other is that if I were to take only, let us say, 500 million people upcountry, outside of all the large cities, and at these tier 2, tier 3, and 4, we are talking divided by 500 million or 10 crore homes. The government has done 1, they are now thinking 2 crores. We have another 7 crores to grow. We have to do 10 crore homes. If I were to go with what Suresh ji said, that land is a challenge, let us assume 5 lakh rupees for the land cost. Doesn't matter how much square feet they get. Let us also assume, and I can tell you that these PMAY homes on tender contracts are getting only 1,200 rupees per square foot with the concrete slab and everything else. They put they don't need any better technology. As a matter of fact, I can also tell you in Mysore, under the Karnataka government scheme, some very good technologies have been used in order to see that they are cost effective, not cheap. This word cheap has got to, anyway.
No, it's cost effective.
It is, indeed it is. In fact, so I am saying, let us assume 5 lakh rupees for 500 square feet home. If they want to build more as customers, it is up to them. They want to spend another 5 lakh rupees, let them do. To the bureaucrat, all we have to say is, sir, we have 10 crore homes to build, 100 million homes, 10 lakh rupees per home. Totally, that is 10,000 crore rupees. You can do the math. Mr. Kalyanaraman will speak after me. And he is a math man. He's a finance man. If I have 10,000 crores to be spent in a country which in the last 7 years wrote off 14 lakh crores, I don't see where the problem is. Let us see where the problem lies, therefore. My hunch is this. Somewhere the administration has to be given a very definitive protocol on how the money is to be given to the customer. I will not call him, I refuse to call her or him a beneficiary. And that money is given to the customer, of course, with no cost. Why would I want to take money from somebody who is earning 20,000 rupees per month? Right? If India has to reach this 10 crore homes with only 10,000 crores to be spent, the devolve of the fund has to happen through a mechanism where there is accountability. Today, it is being given as tenders. There is no accountability if it goes from the government. After 75 years, if we still believe in what the government's efficacy is in these areas, I think we will be retarded. Therefore, if you ask me what they should do, and this is my last minute on this, we have to give them a structure like Kirtibhai gave in Sri Lanka to farm out, outsource this contract, if we want to call it that, to institutions which can devolve the fund to the customer with accountability. And this cannot be done with tenders. If the money is given to the customer, he knows how to use that money. She knows how to use that money much better than somebody who is going to do it as a tender for that person. And the rest of it, I mean, all this, whatever, indicators you showed of owner-driven homes is very clear. That why are we going with all the other things? We must understand that if there is a trend that shows that 2 families out of 3 want it this way, why are we struggling to give them the other thing? Let us not even try to give them that. Give them in a way that they choose. If they want to buy a home that another builder is buying, and if they got 10 lakhs, it's up to them. Over to you, Mr. Kalyanaraman.
So to you, Mr. Kalyanaraman sir, my question is, Dr. Hariharan mentioned that the question of demand, right? What is it that the households are demanding? And the households are clearly, they have a preference for BLC. Any AWS household, especially even in a 1 million+ city, if you give them a small plot of land, they will most likely any day take that over a small flat, right? From a consumer side, and since you have had such a vast experience in the mortgage industry, the retail home loan sector, how have you seen any shift in demand from EWS households, or rather more fundamentally, how is it in terms of different types of products, the end product of the house that they are seeking to fund across different geographies? Where is the demand really coming from EWS households, or do you think, or do you see that there's no demand as such?
Thank you. Thank you for initiating that part of the discussion as to whether the demand exists. I think the question is that whether the demand exists, there's no question about demand. Definitely 100% exists, and it's proven and it's very clearly seen that EWS considers one of the biggest market. The question comes up is that, is the financial institutions ready to serve them? I think that's a one big point you need to understand that part of it. Now, financial institution, if you look at 1 crore, houses, or you're talking about 2 crore houses, I think for them, it's a potential market, and they are going to grab it if they find it interesting for them and they're able to serve that market. And how primary lenders typically, what they look at the perspective is that whether my customer, whether I'm able to assess his income, yeah, whether I'm able to, look at his property documents. Now, look at the EW scheme of even say 20,000 rupees or 25,000. You talked about 5 times of the annual income. No, probably in EW segment, you cannot have 5 times of annual income as a loan eligibility, because the risk parameters actually raises the cost of the borrowing, and probably 2.5 max 3 times is what one can expect, not more than that. And that exactly leaves behind a huge gap for the EWS families to cover the entire cost. Now, this is the exact problem that happens every time and any financial institution tries to get in. To me, EWS scheme or BLC scheme, what you talk about it, is going to work in the smaller towns. And as Mr. Suresh said, I think one has to now start taking, and I found it very interesting that let's separate this 8 or major 10 cities away from the whole thing, because they have become junk now. Because I'm in Mumbai and I'm hearing for this story for the last 40 years since my coming over here, and nothing has moved. It is ironic. It is depressing to go through the whole roads again and again when I see it, that nothing has moved and we are all talking about it. So there's no meaning talking about it, because the governments are different. We need not talk about it. But if we as a professionals want to talk about it, I think why can't we cover the rest of the India and cover the entire demand that is coming up? EWS can definitely work in the smaller towns, provided the subsidy element either as a cost of the land or the amount of loan that is going to come about is going to get covered up. That's where the whole challenge comes up. If that happens, housing finance companies or banks for that matter, they will jump at it and do the entire thing. I want to digress a little bit and take a 1 minute about the whole thing, that as I saw the report that BLC schemes also, you said that a large chunk of them remains incomplete, and that's an area of concern for me. I think during this whole period of time, probably the government could look at the financial institutions as one of the channels of distribution where the monies can be spread out and can be funded them, and entire construction cost gets covered. Today, I believe that all the BLC beneficiaries have ended up taking money from different sources, which may actually have created problem for them rather than helping them to complete the construction. So the challenges are very different in the BLC scheme also within the parameters of LIG and EWS. I don't want to look at MIG, but MIG, EWS, both if you look at it, I think one of the things very clearly comes to me is that keep the cities like Bombay, Delhi, Chennai, and all those major cities out of this game. Keep out of the game.
Which is to some extent, which is what PMAY-U has not been successful in the big cities, right? But having said that, my question to now Suresh sir is, it is not an issue that we can brush under the carpet. That Bombay के housing में कुछ हो नहीं सकता, right? Delhi के housing में कुछ हो नहीं सकता. My question to you, Suresh sir, is, What is it
Yeah.
that,
Yeah, go ahead.
especially from the state government side, you mentioned land reforms, right? Let's look at the land reforms, which you have seen the land reforms taking place over the last so many decades, right? 40 decades is a huge amount of time. What has
Yes.
moved? Has the needle moved? Where should the needle move? And how should you make it move? Is my next question to you.
Actually, I think now that more or less consensus is emerging based on everybody, a separate package has got to be done for the 7 megacities that are more than 50 lakhs plus. 3 are there more than 100 lakhs plus, and 4 are there between 50 lakhs to so on. So maybe a separate strategy will have to be drawn for that to cover. And there are also housing shortages.
Sorry, can I just a small intervention to our participants? Please put your comments and your questions in the Q&A box, not in the chat box. Chitrakshi, can you please, disable the chat box?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So,
Suresh, so sorry. Please continue.
No, not at all. Not at all. I'm quite happy. Not a problem. And having understood that particular thing as it is a challenge, you got to find solution. That's exactly what Kirtibai also told government, that will come back a solution specially for that, having found the gap in the 1.0. And I'm happy that out of the 118 lakhs of house, or 1.19 crores, you're really about 1.14 is started. Only 4 lakhs of houses not started, by the way. You also put 0.4 million,
Yes.
the short one. That's not a big number. That's not a big number for a country so large. But what is interesting is that the figure is 87.5 lakhs is completed. Latest figure. I had a discussion just before I started the meeting over there with the Joint Secretary dealing with the whole PMAY. Latest figure, 87.51 lakhs of houses are completed. That's exactly 75% of the grounded number of houses already started is 114.27. 87.51 lakhs are completed. So that we get the right picture, because we are now doing is a larger one, and this is the latest figure that I've been able to get. It's pretty good. Around that makes it exactly 75% completed, and the remaining about 25 are work in progress. And some of them, according to him, are sanctioned in 2023-24, and some of them 2022-23. So 1.5 years. So those are work is in progress going on. That's not a bad thing. So to your direct question on that, what we should do is what we have done, especially Haryana. Haryana has done an excellent initiative for this type of housing scheme there. And I know a large number of private sector people also have been brought in with the Haryana for the housing program over there. And they also link that along with the green building strategy over there, which is incentives also being given. So if normal incentive FAR was 1.75, because they're also going for the green building, they are getting a 15% extra for going for the green building rating. They get a 2.25 FAR. That means additional potential built-up area on the same land by making all those particular projects which are done under the affordable housing projects under the green building rating. That's the new next dimension, to make water saving, energy saving technologies, by which, and all of them are either a gold rated or projects over there. So they get the benefit of that. And they also bring in around 8% commercial development into overall integrated development. If at all that township level things are different, the 8% commercial development is able to bring subsidization of a very large nature and selling at a certain rate there. That particular thing is also able to take care of the cost of the land. And even within that, what should be done for the weaker sections, EWS component, 30 square meter. They're doing 30 square meter, 45 square meter, and 60 square meter. So these are the type of solutions that you require to do, especially in big cities if you want to make it viable and commercial. So here's a classic example. 30 square meter for the EWS, 45 square meter for the LIG, 60 square meter for the middle income. And our program covers all the whole gap is there, and also bring in a commercial element coming over there. And as a result of that, if you are able to get that 25% for the EWS for the land,
which is cross subsidization. Absolutely.
And commercial at nearly 2. If one is for the other one, commercial at 2, and they're able to bring the subsidization component on the not only the land cost component, but also on the construction component. Also, you can bring in on that. So the solution what will happen is you will get a solution of the order, and the figure is that of the order 12 lakhs component for an EWS house. 12 is pretty good, even if they're able to deliver that. and
Right.
around 50 lakhs for the low income group, and about 20 lakhs for the MIG lower. It's a very good solution of a range, but that's because they brought in this interesting component there of trying to bring in. They also went
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. The cross
to
subsidization point as we covered.
they also went to financial
Absolutely, sir.
engineering with
Absolutely,
8.
sir. So I will just move to for Hariharan sir's comment here, sir, with your permission, on again the land question. Hariharan sir, for a market like Bangalore, okay, for development of EWS housing, whether plotted developments of small plots of land, small 2-room, 3-room, multi-story, maybe 2-floor houses there, or EWS multi-storied flat.
You
As an
can
architect,
never buy
as a
land.
developer, no, as a developer, sir,
No,
what is
no,
it that if
you
you
know,
were in
forget a
state government
developer
that
or
you
a
would do?
tailor. No, but you don't come from this the idea of a builder. See, Bangalore has about 750 to 800 acres of land that belongs to the BBMP. Now you see the math. If let us say per acre at an FSI of only 2.5, I am able to build, let us say, at 500 square feet, 200 homes per acre. Now, 200 homes, if I were to build on 1 acre, and they gave us only 100 acres, nobody sold it. They gave it in a way, like in Singapore, it is land that belongs to the state. I own this, I own you if you are an individual in Singapore. That's what he said at one point of time. So here what happens is the land is not sold. If I have, therefore, simple math, I have, say, 100 acres of that 800 acres that belongs to, these are not parks, and this is not Kaban Park and Lal Bagh. I'm talking of lands that BBMP owns over this 750, 800 square kilometers that we are. You cannot buy land. If I take 100 acres and build 200 homes per acre, you know the number of families that can be supported in those. These should not be given to these people in a way that they can sell it. Therefore, there is no arbitrage of land. If you build, therefore, and you build well, you build it not for a beneficiary, but you build for a customer, and you do not take money from them beyond, let us say, about 10% of it, and you ensure that this small piffling amount of 100 million homes at 1 million rupees per home is met by the government, which is not even an infinitesimal fraction of 1% of our GDP today. I think somewhere either the government or the administration is obfuscating the issue and making people like experts also to be overwhelmed by this issue of cost. There is no issue of cost. Somebody is diverting us, distracting us to think in those lines of the complexity of financing. And to take up what Suresh ji said, and he wants to say something, you mentioned at some point, Debarpita, that, these homes by that blessed policy has to give lighting and what did you say? You said something about running water.
Yeah.
Where is the water to come from? Who is going to give them the water? Unless they are going to, like Suresh ji said, make the homes in a way that the mandated guidelines offer that with efficiency in both energy and water use. And today, the cost nothing for it to be made to happen. I am building homes. Many others are buildings like this, where we are net zero, not net zero water positive. Neutral. We are net zero water positive. Can you imagine that? So these are all things. It is not for want of funds. It is not for want of solutions that housing is not happening. 40 years, says Kalyanaraman. I can tell you, it's a very sad story of obfuscation.
On this note, a follow-on question to you from one of our attendees.
Yeah, I saw the question box. I'm just going to the question box, so I'm able to reply on that. Yeah. And I think there's a very nice question. Even my namesake, H.G. Suresh, has brought a right point is brought in over there about the fifth vertical. Now, one more point which I thought I'll bring it over there, which is important in our discussion is, if Andhra Pradesh has done amazingly well, and you and Kundu rightly brought out, it has a good policy called the weaker section housing policy over there, where land component is never ever included in all the housing program at all. It is a contribution by the state government, by which the land cost is completely subsumed. In addition to the 1.5 lakhs of subsidy which the government of India is giving on the housing program under the PMAY, land cost component is completely taken by the state government. And that's a phenomenal one, including part of the infrastructure cost on laying of the road, etc. And that is one reason why Andhra Pradesh is on top, including, of course, that should be Telangana plus Andhra Pradesh together, because they both had this reconstruction housing program to cover the land cost and the infrastructure cost. Already part of the state is taking that particular responsibility. So that is one reason why in Hyderabad and in Vizag, good amount of housing scheme has successfully been implemented. It's also, mind you, a mega city, about nearly 80
it is, but a problem which is emerging now that we are looking at and we are tracking PMAY-U and its implementation also post our paper. It is that the rate of completions on BLC and AHP in Andhra Pradesh is very, very worrying. It has the highest, delays among all states. And in terms of rate, I'm not talking about in actual numbers. Of course, in actual numbers, it will be high.
Debarpita, I brought that up with you. You see, whether it is in Andhra or even in any state, or even central government funded projects for PMAY, I am saying these things that you're mentioning now are happening only because the government of India has not set a framework for devolving the funds and to secure accountability of the monies being given to customers. The other you must remember is the amount is so small. 100 million homes will house 500 million people, please remember. And each home only needs 1 million. We do not need financing companies. This is money the government has to offer. Remember, the manifesto of the BJP said 15 lakh rupees will be given to each family. That's 1.5 million rupees. Let them not give the money to them. Let them build a house at 10 lakh rupees. Let them not give them 15 lakh. And Debarpita, my last sentence, Sureshji, one more. Debarpita, I will put it like this to you. Somebody who came up with that scheme for 15 lakh rupees per family, not per citizen, thought that out, looked at the entire structure of the public expenditure, saw how it is a small sliver as a pie chart goes of that overall revenue or GDP of the country for the year, and said, we can offer 15 lakhs. And they did not say they will offer 15 lakhs to all the families in 1 year. They said they will do it over 5 years of the regime of a government. There is an economic structure that will make this eminently feasible and viable. Over to you, Sureshji.
15 lakhs, it's 1.5 lakhs of union government money and a matching amount from the state side, right?
See, this is again obfuscation. Please do not be led by that. Please do not be confused by what the government does. Please remember only one thing, 100 million into 1 million rupees is all they need to give. I do not know why they are confusing everybody. Please
I will come back to you, both of you, in a while.
Please do not get confused by them is all my request.
Sir, right? Kalyanaraman sir, the question that, that the EWS have such... I will come
One second. I think Uma Adusumilli has... You wanted a lot of people to come in question box. I've seen all the question box. All the 5 questions I've gone through. Very interesting. One of them is from Pune, about 1,800 rupees per square feet, as against 2,000. Good. I'll give answer to that. But most important, Uma Adusumilli has gone very good. She was the chief urban planner of Mumbai Metropolitan Regional Development Authority. She was the chief planner of SIDCO. She is, after retirement, she is now in Vizag. She has given a wonderful answer, very similar to what I have indicated, how states have got to intervene. Please see question number 3, which Uma Adusumilli has given on that. So states have got to intervene along with the other one for the land cost component over there. This is what's similar. I saw her response only later after talking to you, and it's exactly similar to us. Please read Uma Adusumilli's.
Many states, in fact, have done, especially from a perspective of giving pattas for slums, right? Andhra Pradesh has done it in a big way. Madhya Pradesh has done it. West Bengal has done it to some extent, and even in the bigger cities, right? Mostly in the smaller cities, but maybe some in the outskirts of the bigger cities, right? Wherein they have been able to be covered under BLC. My question to you, coming back to the home loan question, sir, for EWS households, right?
Okay.
It is well established, Kalyanaraman sir, that EWS households have limited access to institutional finance compared to the higher income households, right? But at the same time, there are financial institutions like affordable housing finance companies, like the microfinance institutions, or maybe even in the other institutions, other organizations, which are pushing the envelope there through field-based assessments, etc., etc. Moving ahead 5 years, right? What is it that you see should be done to scale this up? To scale up this age affordable housing finance companies to bring down even their cost of capital, right? Because their cost of capital is also much higher than for a traditional bank, right? So
Yeah,
both these
yeah.
questions.
So you have rightly said the, so 2010-11, I would say that while prior to that, even affordable housing game had started off, but 2011, I can really see that every housing finance company today, if you look at it, more than 80% of housing finance companies operate in the affordable housing segment. And it has taken for them some time, almost 7-8 years, to understand, to evaluate how to calculate the income of the informal segment, especially coming EWS. Now, we cannot cover the 100% EWS because some of them are not bankable and becomes difficult. But I think all housing finance companies or every primary lending institutions have pushed the envelope, and all of them know that this is the emerging market and they need to operate in this market, and they are learning the threads of the game as to how to evaluate and how to make them comfortable as a customer and move them up the ladder in the value chain or in the formal economy. It has taken time. It will take time because it is not easy for every housing finance company or a microfinance institution to get into the space and take the risk. And the risk happens is because most of them are funded by private equity funds or by others. They don't have a very, their tap has been closed almost, and the source of funding is very high for them. So obviously the risk factor is also high in lending to this place. Obviously they have to report after every 90 days to the stock market or to their own investors as what's happening. Now, there was a scheme called Credit Link Fund for Low Income Housing. Now, I think this needs to be really shaped up well so that the housing finance companies feel comfortable that there is something back that's going to support them in case of any major risk that they're going to take. And that has not been, it has been a non-starter, I would say, in a real sense. And that really pushes the risk averseness of most of the financial institutions, and they try to cover only the top level of EWS and large LIG. Today, probably 15 years back, LIG was not part of the scheme. Now, LIG has become a mainstream for all affordable housing finance companies, and they're coming down. But now their back needs to be covered by credit risk guarantee fund for low income housing with minimal norms. And the cost of the running this program should not get loaded, which will again increase the cost of borrowing for the customer for EWS scheme. Now, I actually have been thinking in this part saying that, while the discussions are going on, I would say that the top 7 cities should look like the Singapore model, where the construction is done by the government and done everything. But in the lower end, other places, I think the BLC and the interest subvention scheme can work out very well. That can work. But probably we need an institution like Fannie Mae or Ginnie Mae, what happens in the US, only working on EWS scheme for India, where the institution only focuses on refinances these institutions, ensures that the entire fund flow channelizes to these institutions. And today, regulator is completely controlling these institutions very well, and the systemic risk will not emerge provided they are taken care of. And believe me, every CEO of a housing finance company, you talk to them, they're gung-ho and they want to rush into this segment, provided they're taken care of. But at 15% and 20% rate of interest, the borrowing capacity can never be 5 times of their income. It has to be max 2.5 to 3 times of income.
You are again and again, bringing it up, and very rightly. So how can they be taken care of? The credit risk fund is one way.
One is I said, one is that, Suresh sir, I'll just leave one statement and leave behind. So one is that credit risk guarantee fund trust for low income housing, which is a non-starter, needs to be taken up and probably shaped up better. And that should involve only the...
Also increase the cost of the loan?
Yes, obviously, because the housing finance companies have to pay the, for the cover, insurance cover.
Yeah.
So obviously the cost will go up. So any cost that they're going to go up, they are not going to take it on them. They're going to load it on the cost of borrowing.
Yes,
So
yes.
that is definitely going to go up. And that's one part of it. And the second part is that there has to be a separate, all these funds the government is doing, all these things. If entire thing can be taken up and an agency in a national housing bank or HUDCO or whatever institutions are taking up, they become the refinancing agency only on EWS and taking care of this. I think we are on a runway to complete all the constructions. I feel not 1 crore, be like 2 crore.
Yeah, I have 2-3 answers on that. On the finance related issue, it's a very important component, and maybe this should be what 2.0 should do on that. See, well, on housing finance is an important component, especially affordable housing finance is an important one. One is cost of the land, cost of technology. Leave it. For example, you should give the lowest rate of interest, longest repayment period. For example, HUDCO had a system by which if EWS is given at 7% rate of interest, low income was getting 8%, middle income was getting at 10%, and repayment of 12, 15 for the high-end middle income, and 20 years repayment was there for the EWS. Longer repayment period, lowest rate of interest should be available, number one, which is not the way in which the bank wants a uniform rate of interest to everybody, uniform repayment period. That should not be the approach. Number two, give access to low-cost money. For example, for these type of particular program there, if you are able to get, why is that Fannie Mae, Freddie Mae, and all the other people are doing, they got access to the funds from the pension fund, provident fund, and the insurance fund. All the three are long-term money over there, 30, 40 years money. All the money that housing finance companies are raising are short-term money, deposits and all that. And they have to lend it long for the period. Asset liability mismatch comes over there. Give these institutions for lending EWS, if access to money is an important component there, give them the money with longer repayment period of which is from the insurance fund, provident fund money, as well as the what do you call the third one, which I just now told. Singapore did that with the provident fund money. Insurance fund was looked after by the Europe. Complete Europe was done. Pension fund was looked at whole of US, access to that money over there. And we had one interesting 6.5% interest subsidy available for the EWS, but unfortunately that was removed in between. Ask that to be done for 2.01. So even if you get it 6 or 8%, that beneficiary will get at 6.5% less at 1.5% rate of interest. Now,
Yes, sir. PMAY 2.0 does have a home loan subsidy scheme. It has been renamed as interest subsidy scheme.
We have to really get into that. And number fourth one, in addition to what all I just said, fourth one, give access to the low-cost money from the market over there, 54 EB and 54 EC, people who contribute to that particular thing, they get also tax exemptions coming. Previously, we had the benefit of that. HUDCO used to have that benefit over there, but the last 15, 20 years or ever since 2000, that's all stopped there. Give them the access to the money. That means they will be able to get from the market funds that of the order about 5% and 6% rate of interest, and people who contribute to that particular, they will get the tax exemption coming under that particular one. So this is another way. So there are a series of things only on the housing finance related, because the microfinance institution cannot give, they're all giving at 15 and 18% rate of interest. They cannot give it lower rate of interest because it's a income come other loans put together, they're coming there. We can work on the housing finance lately, and I think Kalyanaraman has hit the nail on the head on various aspects. Combined with some that I given, we can have separate chapter coming on that, especially on access to low cost or affordable money. I think if you're able to, even at 6 to 7% rate of interest and a 20 years repayment period, that's not happening. Uniform rate of interest, one rate of interest for high income, middle income, and low income, and no. HUDCO had that social objectivity there. They should come back on that. I was there for a long time. Kirti was on the board of directors. He'll tell you that. Now we got to get it back. We got to give longer repayment period of 20 years repayment period for the weakest institution, because of the EMI comes at a lower level.
I will come on that. I will pick on that, sir, suggestion, and I will pitch it to Kalyanaraman ji, who is an industry veteran. Sir, is that possible? And there is a very pertinent question from the audience. Does schemes like CLSS or retail home loans does not it have the risk of pushing this urban poor households into a debt trap?
Yeah, before Mr. Kalyanaraman responds to that question, I will pose one to him as a financial expert or somebody who understands how these things can be devolved. Supposing, Mr. Raman, I came to you as a builder and I said, I have 1 acre that has been given to me on a 98-year lease by the government without land cost. And I said that I am going to build 500 homes, 1 lakh square feet, 200 homes, that is. And my cost is at 1,200 rupees per square foot. Ramakanji said in Pune, he's paying 1,800 rupees per square foot. And I can tell you that if the specifications are rationalized, well, it's all to do with what we build as specifications into these things. I know that the cost of steel as the cost of cement is not going to change, whether I'm building for the poor or the rich. But there are other areas we can bring efficiencies, I will say. So I come to you and say that I need 12 crores from you. Now, your transaction cost is only one builder. It is not on these retail home loans and multiple number of buyers you have got. What is the rate at which you can give, and what is the subsidy or some such element that you can get from the central or some other government in a manner that your fund is also, covered well enough with your administrative costs? That is one question. The second, I will only respond to Ramakanji and say, look at it like this. Again, I go back. India does not need 2 crore homes. India needs 10 crore homes minus, let us say, these 2 crore whatever homes. Ramakanji, you're right. If you say 7 crore homes are to be built, let us go back to the 10. If I go back to even your 70 lakh crores, what is it as a percentage? My question to you, Ramakanti, what is it as a percentage of 250,000 lakh crores, which is your GDP last year? It's a piffle, I'm saying to you, Ramakanti. Over to you, Mr. Raman.
So, Dr. Chandrashekar, I just want to first declare that I would not like to be called a financial expert in front of Mr. Suresh, sir. I'm too young for him. And I've been growing in front of him as been all these years. So in his presence, I'll feel very small. So that's first declaration I want to make before I go ahead. So first question, to be very frank, sir, I don't have a mandate from any financial institution to talk on what I'm saying. It's my personal perception of this 4 decades of experience in the industry. Whether you are working for any project for that matter, the developer risk is a very different entity altogether, and will get evaluated very different in terms of your background, all those stuff. The risk of non-completion of projects in the different segments are very different. The experiences have been very different for different organizations and different geographies. So one cannot make one size fits all comment on all this aspect. But definitely, this is very interesting that you're saying if there is a blend of government intervention of subsidy plus the developer coming in with a very good trust factor, probably organizations will look very different. And then there's no reason why the partnership projects has not picked up. Probably the trust factor is somewhere it comes into play. And that's one big issue, I would say. So I would not like to put any number to it and say that definitely if the trust comes in, I think organizations looks at it very differently. Whether it's a EWS scheme or it's a MIG or it's a luxury schemes. But at the end of the day, financial institutions want to earn money for their stakeholders, and they will not mince words about that. Wherever they get their money, that's where they'll put their mark out.
I'm entirely with you, Mr. Raman. We have to respect money for what it represents. Right. My only submission to you is, if you gave me, let's go back to that example of a builder. You gave me 12 crores for building, let us say, 1 lakh square feet, right? In 1,200 rupees, I will build it, I know, right? My question to you is, if I get a loan from you, you know what I will do? I will rent the house, 500 rupees, I will give them at 15,000 rupees to families. I will not even sell it to them.
If I'm not mistaken, a lot of projects are on the annual and a lot of things are happening.
Because of the land cost factor. That's why I'm telling you, if I remove the land cost from the equation, then it becomes viable. Now, if I gave it at 15,000 rupees, 500 square feet, well built with 2 toilets also, I will get at 30 rupees, let us say, per month, I will get about 3.6 crores. I am taking 12 crores from you. I'll pay you back in 6 years as a builder.
I think we need to evaluate differently, but I'm sure what you're talking about, I said subsidy in any form from the government comes in and the trust factor comes in with the developer, I don't think financial institutions will back out. Definitely, they'll make a try. They'll make an experiment and make it up, and we can scale it up, provided the trust factor keeps going up. But coming back to the fact, Debarpita, you asked me a specific question. What was that exactly? If you can rephrase it.
Yeah, this was a question from one of the attendees that even if you do give a loan to a urban poor or let's say lower EWS or EWS household, is there not a risk of pushing them into a debt trap?
Absolutely. When you're going to give five,
experience.
when you give 5 times, that's why we say that when you said 5 times of income, I was calculating yesterday. Today in the EWS family, even with the income of 25,000 rupees, with 50% of the income going in the EMI, one cannot get more than 8 lakhs to 9 lakhs maximum at 15% rate of interest for 20 years.
We should give more than 5 lakhs.
9 lakhs, sir. It gets 9 lakhs for a period of 20 years. So the thing is that if you're going to have if the amount of money that they require is less, probably I would never say in EWS schemes, one should have an installment of more than 30 to 35% of their income going towards the housing construction. If that happens, the balance coming as a subsidy, I was having this ratio yesterday. I was looking at reworking the entire discussion. I was thinking of saying that 60% subsidy, 30% loan, and 10% self contribution is a combination can work in EWS scheme very well. Now, this 60, 30, and 10 can be any form in terms of land, in terms of money, in terms of construction material, whatever you talk about it. But, Mr. Chandrashekar said that I want to talk to them as a customer. I said, if he's a customer, you want to treat as a customer, I think please don't over leverage them, because most of the EWS segment are coming from informal income sources, and the winter periods are very tough to go through, and we have seen it. It is heart-wrenching to even go and stand before them asking for money, right? And in that situation, it is very important that we don't over-leverage.
A very interesting question for you, Kalyanaraman sir.
Sorry,
from
Debarpita, just one second, Debarpita. Yeah. Mr. Raman, if you go with the experience of microfinance institutions over the last 20 years, 98% repayment, 2% failure, sometimes even less. The economically weaker section have a far greater sense of dignity than the middle class of that privilege. They will not want somebody to come to their house in the mohalla that they stay in and be humiliated for non-payment. They will pay.
So 70,000 rupees and 5 lakh rupee is a different component of repayment.
Small loan.
So 70,000, 5 lakh, please understand, it's a concern, sir. Microfinance, I definitely respect, and I have gone to very closely studied it and said, why can't we replicate in housing sector? I think that the ball game is very different. In a microfinance, it is for a slightly commercial, residential plus commercial. But in a housing loan, it's purely housing. It's almost like a debt investment. If the EWS family is not going to use the asset for some commercial activity at their place. Right.
A follow-on question to that, Kalyanaraman ji, here at this point before you complete your answer from HT Suresh. I agree with Kalyanaraman sir. We should segregate non-bankable people and landless poor people who are large in number, and there should be a separate institution. We can at most get 10% contribution, that too many a times in labor form. Come PMAY-3, he has moved one step ahead. Still, we cannot cover such people, and we owe the poor. Okay, can Kalyanaraman sir still clearly how the separate institutions that he meant about, right? How does he visualize them? Does that question?
So very simple, in the other developed markets, institutions have come up by the regulatory, by the Act of Constitution, and we have enough institutions in the country. We don't have to create more. Where the funding actually to the EWS goes almost up to 90% of the property cost. When that happens, all of us, all the panelists, what we're talking about it is going to work out. We should never give anything free. And we need to get this entire EWS section of the community back into the mainstream. And to do that, some amount component of loan or repayment capacity, building their own self-esteem by paying back comes through. And it's very important that this is a body created by Constitution, which has got the entire funding coming from the budgetary provisions and does a refinance to housing finance companies and primary lending institutions, who in turn ensure that it is done. And insurance cover, credit insurance cover is taken to ensure that the defaults are being taken care and the financial institutions do not come under the lurch of the regulatory and other norms, so that we really
Right.
make a difference to the EWS. Otherwise,
Absolutely.
this will be a non-starter.
Absolutely. Suresh, sir, I
Simple,
have
very
the
simple.
last question for you. Sir, in addition to what this answer, there's a very interesting question in the chat box, and I end the panel discussion with this question to Suresh, sir, which
Go
is
ahead.
that this is a question from Vijay Jadhav, and
Ah.
he says, how do we as a citizen, how can we contribute to this issue? It's a completely novel question that I have come across. Over to you, Suresh, sir. And post this, Kirti sir, we close the panel discussion. And over to
Only
you.
Arpita, after Suresh says, I just want 1 minute. You want
Sure,
that
sure,
last.
Sure.
Yeah,
Suresh, please.
before I answer Yadav's question, any housing, because my point is we are concentrating the last 20 minutes only on the housing finance, the very crucial one, not for subsidy alone. You want to have affordable finance for the EWS component there. And I continue to make the statement now, it's possible, it's feasible. Only thing is, we should make all the series of action which I told. I gave 5 actions that should be made operable, and institutions are away. You don't have to create that. If you are able to give at the rate of roughly a 6% rate of interest, I told even a 2% it came to with the interest subsidy, 8 minus 6.5 comes to nearly 1.5% rate of interest. It's as good as 150 rupees for every 1 lakh of loan if it is 1.5. If you are able to give even at 600 rupees for every 1 lakh of loan, which is 6% rate of interest, a 20-year repayment period, even a 7 lakh loan is only 420 rupees is the monthly installment. Imagine you'll write history if you are able to do that particular one component. So 4,200 rupees, 600 rupees per month for every 1 lakh of loan. A 7 lakh of loan will be 4,200 rupees. And many people pay the rents, which is much, much more to the local dadas and all that to get a house. And you get a house of your own. So our approach should be anything between 5 to 6% rate should be the rate at which you'll be able to make your money to the economically weaker section over there. Up to 5 lakhs loan, I don't want to make it 6 or 7 lakhs and give it a 20-year repayment period. Your installments will be around 4,000 rupees.
That's an open challenge from Suresh sir to all financial institutions.
It's possible, it's feasible. We have done a large number of interesting projects to the fishermen, to the choir workers, handloom workers, successful programs we have implemented. That's not a problem. What is required is access to money and to what target group you are going to give that particular the benefit or they should not. Because if you're really meaning that particular target group or the poorest or the poor, and one is, of course, I always put one more group in addition to HIG, MIG, LIG, EWS. I put NIG, no income group. No income group is the one which is the below the poverty line. For them, we got to see as much of 90% of the things should be subsidized. 10% should be only the loan component, which also Kalyanaraman briefly touched. And I have a combination of contribution A from the individual, the government, the institutional and societal organization. All the 4 together should come to make the 100% of the cost of the house coming on that. So it was the loan component, which will be the institutional component. What percentage that should be? Preferably, you should not make it more than about 40 or 50%. Contribution of the government side, which is the governmental, then the individual into the cash kind and labor component, then the institutional component, then societal organization can also give it. For community people, like for example, the question that was asked by the gentleman Yadav asked, what is that? We can all contribute to some shelter fund, which can all a contribution which can be tax-based incentive coming, a national shelter fund or something of that nature. If you're able to put into that, I'll get a tax incentive on that, and that particular money will get into a big corpus coming. That's a very nice question. What is that we can each do, as we are a big country of 140 crores or 1.4 billion. Even if you take only of the order of 20 crores out of the 140 crores, people contributing that particular middle income and high income category people and contribute around 2,000 or 4,000. We build a national shelter fund or something like that. That particular people will get into that. And for them to put that money over there, you get some incentives coming in the tax breaks and all that, which is nothing for the government. Is good. It's participation of a nation in a larger national shelter fund.
That's certainly huge food for thought.
So-
That's certainly huge food for thought, Suresh sir. That's certainly huge food for thought. Raman sir, your point, and then I think Dr. Hari has a point to make, and we end with Dr. Hari. Raman sir, please.
Yeah. So very, very quickly, I think Suresh sir has covered up. My whole thing is that I've been thinking of since some time. I said we need to have a sovereign mutual fund for housing where we have redeemable coupons, housing coupons. Like these mutual funds, the low income can also invest, a high income group can also invest. And this sovereign mutual fund should be only focusing on EWS schemes and develop those sectors, right? And I think the people who are investing should get those benefits in terms of whatever tax benefits are, whatever other benefits are, some other way their cost getting covered up. I think one is that the fund gets properly utilized, invested, and as well as the fund is being back redeployed into the housing economy, which is going to impact the entire economy by 250, 260 industries. This is going to be a major way of governing up the whole thing, right? So, I want to leave this thought process is that one is that, micro housing finance companies in this country has done a very good job. They actually moved a lot of people from the EWS A to B and C. That's how I would call it. They moved up because of which they've been eligible now for home loans. I think the trajectory is going to only go up. This much I tell you.
70,000 is different from 7 lakhs. As you rightly, beautifully said that. Up to 40,000, 20,000 small loan, livelihood improvement loan, they all repay back, not a problem. But that it's all driven. What is the amount? It is not 20,000 or 30,000 or 60,000. It is 7 lakhs or 5 lakhs. The difference at that point, at that scale is different. Kalyanaraman hit the nail on the head. As far as that microfinance cannot help there. Thank you.
Debarpita and Mr. Raman, Mr. Suresh ji, and our Kirti bhai, and of course everyone who's listening, who are policy planners, distinguished people. Banashri is here. I know others are here. Michael Slingsby is here, and so on. I'll put it like this to you. I didn't want to say this because this is something I did, and I don't like to talk about such work. I took one land, not a very large one, on the north of Bangalore. I built 60,000 square feet. And the land cost I had to recover, my construction cost was 1,200 rupees. I did a landlord on that. I built 1.8 FSI, and I managed to sell it.
The timeline, if you can.
I built it in 18 months, right?
No, when? How many years back?
2012 to end of 2013.
Okay.
Right? And we sold it at 2,000 rupees per square foot. We got people who said, sir, we don't have bank accounts. They came and gave us cash. There were people who were dhobis, maids, drivers in the airport, because this was to the north of Bangalore. The entire project was only approximately 7.3 crores or so. Our cost at about 1,200 rupees plus my land cost, everything, I spent about 6.2 crores to 6.3 crores. My interest cost was about 35-40 lakhs. I earned nothing out of that project actually after 18 months, if I were to take into account project cost and people cost, that is, management cost. So, but I did it because Kirtibhai knows me for my foolishness. I did it because I wanted to prove that this could be economically viable, not profit making. There were other projects in the same area. When I got this land, I got this because of another land which was about 19 plus 2, 21 acres. And I did a middle class, whatever, at some 5,200 rupees per square foot villa and so on. But it proved to me, and anyone who comes to Bangalore, I can take you there and show you someday. No lifts, no tiles. I did neat cement finish. There was no skirting for the walls. The staircases were possibly another, say, about 0.3 meters less than what I will have for other. That is, I worked as much as I could to increase efficiency of carpet area to the super built area, in order to see that I'm able to get that magic mark of 500 square feet. And like Mr. Raman also said this, there are a few more people who are in this segment. They all build like this. What do they do therefore? And I'll tell you one thing, no, not one person defaulted. Not 1% monthly, I'm saying, in whatever little thing that they had to pay to the institution that gave them money. Okay, I'll take the name. I went to HDFC, told them, look, these are small loans, but I want you to see if you can, you know, the person I met, some DGM fellow, he said, sir, in this segment, there will be no failures, because if I send somebody to their office in a uniform, they will get petrified and they will pay. That is all he told me.
Over to you, Kirti sir, for the closing remarks and for your overall remarks on the session.
Thank you very much. First of all, thank you very much, Debarpita ji. I still don't know how to pronounce you, but Debarpita ji and Rashmi ji, and of course, everyone. Thank you very much. It's been a wonderful learning experience. I don't want to summarize, but I have been dealing with this subject for such a long time, and therefore to remain silent, having introduced the whole thing and organized the whole thing, will be unfair to myself. So let me kind of make a few observations, very quickly, but very few. Number one, I was in a meeting in Bangkok 4 months ago. It was a global meeting organized by, interestingly enough, government of Thailand, and it was called Collective Housing, Let People Be the Solution. That was a global meeting. There were about 300 people. And I made a presentation, said, slum problem is solvable. We are conspiring not to solve it. What I was basically saying was, this is something that we've been saying for a long time. And I think, reason I'm talking about slum, I think, Debarpita ji, I told you, when I was making this inquiry about PMAY, first question that I've been asking everyone, what is the impact of this program on slums? And I said, without any evidence, and I think it could not have made big impact. It couldn't have reached there. And I think that is what your statistics and figure says as well. Now, solution exists. And that solution is in situ slum upgrading, not of the kind we're talking about, but slum upgrading of the kind that Orissa is doing now. Now, it's very interesting. Why is it workable? Any housing program has three major components. One is the land component, second is the infrastructure component, and third is the land component. What slum in situ upgrading talks about is this. Forget about the shelter. Don't worry about it at all. Don't touch it. People have built it. They know how to build it. If it is not appropriate, they will improve it, but don't touch it. Don't touch the shelter at all. Then it says, deal with land issue. Don't worry about also about ownership and all that, but secure tenure. 30 years, 50 years, 40 years, give secure tenure. And provide services and capacitate your municipal bodies to supply it. They, in any case, supplying to everyone, let them supply to the poor, and they will be very happy to pay it back. Now, this is a fairly simple formula. Remove formal housing from the equation, take land away, that's number two, and provide services. And if you do this, this will happen in no time. So this is the one part. The second part that I was talking about is this, that just imagine all public housing that has happened in this country in the last 50 years. It's very interesting that land component is almost minus. Housing that housing has built, slum clearance boards are built. Even this housing highly subsidized, land component, as Ramesh was, Suresh was talking about, I think in Andhra Pradesh, they really kind of remove it. And once you do that, everything falls in place. Like, say, for instance, I'm doing very quick calculation, I'm an architect, that even if you build a 2,000 rupees square foot, 2,000 rupees square foot, 350 square feet house costs 7 lakhs. and 7 lakh is obviously manageable. And therefore, I think, so whole aspect of land issue. And I think India has a history, 1976, from Land Ceiling Act to hundreds of things that have been tried out, I think is something that should be looked into. And this should be looked into in the context of new mindset. I learned just day before, my wife found out from someone that I am now eligible for 5 lakh rupee grant from Government of India.
Congratulations. Please take it, Kirtibhai.
No, I'm saying that I'm eligible. And the new insurance, the scheme that has come up, health scheme, which is supposed to help 40 million people, is irrespective of income.
Right.
That I can access 5 lakhs rupees for healthcare if I require operation, and that's an absolutely legible. This is something that could have not been thought about long time ago. So what I'm trying to say is this, that if you really make, rich people like me, I think, eligible for health coverage, why not, I think, there's other people? And I think all that you're asking for is taking care of land and taking care of land in a manner where it really makes it possible. Other two things that I want to make very, very quickly, something which people like you will never talk about, because you're worried about, I think, the returns and supply driven and demand driven, is the size of the house. We continuously, and I think I learned this in Sri Lanka when I was working there doing this 50,000 houses for the Government of India. Suresh, you will not believe me, the Sri Lankan government, ever since tsunami, has not built a single house which is less than 550 square foot.
Yeah.
Good.
Not one house, 550 square foot. 50,000 houses that they built with Government of India money, in which I'm involved, Harisa, we know that, in which Government of India put 1,600 crore rupees. Not a single house is smaller than 550 square foot. We have been building for a very long time.
So, Kirtibhai, you must tell them also of how the owner said, we will add more money and expand the house.
No, that's a longer story. But what I'm saying, I'm talking about the policy part. That 550 miles, if you're building 350 square foot house, you're building suboptimal house. And making people leave for next 2 or 3 generations into suboptimal house, where children will go, where I think culture will develop, where citizens will take shape, is something we need to talk about, I think, in a great deal. I think this is, I'm personally do not talk about this because I know poverty, I know all that, but it's an issue that is very important that must be looked into when you're looking at this. I also feel that it's very important to talk about people as builders. And I'll tell you why this is very important. As a matter of fact, if you really understand your cities, and if you understand how housing works, I don't know, Surasab, if you heard about this, but this is the statistic which I use time and again. Then out of 10 houses that get built in a given city, 1.5 house is built by public sector, between 1 and 1.5. About 2 numbers is built by private sector.
Others are individuals.
Remaining are built by people, and that includes 2 sectors, the organized private sector and unorganized private sector. And if you take a contribution of slums, it is somewhere between 3 to 4%. So even today, the biggest builders of houses in our cities are slum dwellers. Now, if you really look at cities as geography, if you go to the city on the periphery, you go to the city where fair amount of infrastructure exists, and if you go to the city in the center. The house today on the periphery is still affordable, more or less. And that's a big business is happening. And if you look at the supplier, if you really go to the big organized private sector, if you go to a non-organized private sector, and if you go to the people sector, and if you combine these two, you'll find out there is a formula for sustainability, for formula for low cost, formula for affordability. And this is something that needs to be examined, how it works.
Surely.
Small little last story. And Suresh, this will interest you. Hari Saab, this will interest you.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm with you.
At one point, I was staying at Oberoi for a long time. And a friend of mine who runs Business India magazine came to see me. And he doesn't take tea or coffee, so I gave him coconut pani. And then signed a bill of 60 rupees. Now, this is exactly the same coconut, which if I cross two roads and go to this person selling on the street, costs 4.5 rupees. 4.5 rupee coconut becomes 60 rupee by traveling 40 meters. And you've got to examine the system which makes it absolutely non-viable, which really defines the norms of viability and affordability. And we just don't think about this at all. And I personally, we've got to look at this systemically into what is one which will allow you to deliver and what will not allow you to deliver. So these are the kind of very quick few points that I thought I'll make. Debarpita ji, I have from the very beginning told you that one event is never enough, and we got to kind of think about a few more. And there are many other people who should come in and see and hear you. And not only that, as I said, that we've got to prepare and tell the government before implementation of PMAY-U really gets going, what is that is needed to be thought through, what is needed to be added, and what could lead to improvement. So we are not talking in isolation. We are not talking abstract. We are talking a very solid reality. And we need to talk about financing, we talk about subsidization, we talked about designs, we talked about many other things. So this has been a very rich experience, rich learning. And thank you very much, Debarpita ji, Rashmi ji, Suresh Babu, Hariharan ji, Kalyanaraman ji, and of course, those who are still around listening to this discussion. Thank you very much. And of course, Chitrakshi, thank you very much for all the background work, and Bumaji for all your help and assistance. Without you two, this would not have been possible. Thank you very much. Someone told me that my colleague Banashri is somewhere.
She's there. Banashri is there and Mike is there, Kirti bhai. I think you should.
So before we end, I think and Banashri is so incredibly wise.
And your dear friend is there, Kirti bhai. Dunu Roy is there, and you're taking him for granted.
So it will be wonderful, Banashri ji, to hear your last words before we really wind up the show.
No. We have to ask three of them, all three of them to speak. They're also governing board members. Kirti bhai, you are unfair.
Okay, fine. Let's start with Banashri ji.
Chitrakshi, can unmute Banashri, ma'am?
You may have to make her a panelist.
Is she still there?
She's there.
I gave her a brilliant to her on her chat. She gave a good point, and I gave an answer already.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I already given a response to that.
Yes, she's a thinking person.
Yeah, as many questions as I given a response wherever possible.
Yeah. Anyway, if Mike is there, he can speak. Mike, are you there? And are you able to get audio?
Yeah, Mike, are you there?
Great.
बनश्री मैडम को ये अनम्यूट करो ना, क्या अपना बात कैसे कर रहे हो?
Who can do that?
Banashri, is Mike there? Mike, are you there? Do you hear me?
Chitrakshi, can you give them panelist status, please? For Mr. Dunuroy also. Quickly, if you can. All three of them will have some insights.
Yeah. Is
Yeah,
Dunu
Banashri
there too?
Banashri has come.
Banashri has come, okay.
Yeah, I see her on the box.
They have to be converted to panelists. Chitrakshi, you have to do that for all three. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Banashri, you can speak, please.
Can you hear me?
We can't hear you.
Very faint,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Hi. Hi, Banashri.
Can you hear me?
She came and went.
Yeah,
So
she's
she's
here.
there?
Yeah, that's right.
She's very faint.
Hovering around somewhere.
Yes. Now
Yes, we can hear you.
You can hear me?
Yes, please.
Okay. I think it was a wonderful webinar. And Debarpita Roy and her team have done, I think, excellent work with this report that they have. And I think I particularly like this differentiation into city sizes. And, you know,
We lost her.
Yeah, we
Mike.
lost.
Michael has come.
Michael, you can. Good afternoon to you.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Yes.
Nice to see some very old friends, Suresh. I've not met for many years, but great to see you. Thank you.
Sureshji, this is Michael Slingsby. He's speaking from Vietnam just now.
yes.
Not Vietnam, Cambodia, I think.
Sorry.
Yes, it's Cambodia.
Cambodia, yes, Phnom Penh. Go on. Sorry, Mike.
So we have Michael. I think Michael is muted.
You can speak. You will continue to tell us.
Yeah,
Okay.
We can see
So
you.
Yeah.
I thought that's you know, it gives a lot of inputs for the second part of PMAY. And I think what I already wrote in the question answer thing that, you know, so far the emphasis of the ministry and PMAY has been on promoting this programs with, you know, this housing programs with getting developers into this whole thing. And I think, you know, initially when the program was designed, BLC was not supposed to be such a great component, but then, you know, it was so difficult to get land and all sorts of things. Then the, you know, BLC land ran away with all the numbers. So, but then we also see that looking at the experience of other countries, that self-built housing is not going to go away. It's going to remain, you know, a big plank, especially in tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 cities. And that's where we have to aim our technology support, our financial support, because a lot of the self-built housing is, you know, it's dangerous, it's not sustainable. And so that kind of technical assistance which is required should really be built in and a program which is, you know, large in scale can do it in very many ways. And I think we can learn from the past where, you know, the building centers and Nirmiti Kendras were, we learn from that and see where assistance can be given to people to build in a way that is not wasteful and that is sustainable. Also looking at, you know, practical ways of bulk purchase of materials and, you know, stuff like that. So thank you very much, Debarpita and team, and everybody else for having this wonderful webinar. Gives a lot of food for thought. Thank you.
Thank you for joining in, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Michael.
Yeah, I would just like to say three things. One is, first of all, I fully endorse what Ketty has said in his sort of closing remarks. And this is the area we really have to go into. Secondly, I want to emphasize a point that has already been made, and that is that we're very much in danger of driving poor people into even more poverty as a result of them having to mobilize additional funds. And I think that this is something that we need very much to look at. And lastly, something I've just looked at again recently. Now, what in the 70s and 80s, the World Bank had some sites and services schemes, and they included MIG, LIG, EWS, and there was cross-subsidization. They were very carefully financed. The people only paid the, if I remember correctly, the actual additional cost of acquiring the land at the EWS level, and the LIG and EW and MIG families paid more, and there was a very complex system of cross-subsidization that addressed some of the problems that you've been talking about. So I think we can go back and look at some of these old schemes and see are there lessons to be learned from that. Yeah, thank you.
Good, very good input.
Is Dunu there? Dunu?
No, sir.
I think he's left. He was there earlier. Just now he must have left.
He has left.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, then I think if we are through, once again, thank you very much to everyone, and look forward to seeing you again. This has been very rich, very educative, and very enlightening in the sense that it's given lots of ideas to think about and share with people who are doing this PMAY-2. And as I said, we have started a formal system in this sense, we are trying to work on this. And therefore, anyone with ideas will be most welcome. Suresh Shah, come and join. Debarpita ji is helping us on that.
Surely, we'll be most happy to be of any help to this particular work. There's a topic so close to our heart for the last 6 decades. And I think the last point which Michael said is important on the cross-subsidization is exactly what I said. 30 rupees, 30%, 25%, 50%, 75, 100. That gives the answer to all your problems on land and related issue on when you deal with that particular one. That's the very important point, which is what Rajasthan has done already very successfully. If you want to still make land to be entirely left out, which is what Andhra has done, the problem is still better if as a solution. Land and infrastructure cost, if it can be covered by the state in a very big way. The biggest reason why the weaker section housing program done by Ramarao earlier and followed for the last 35 years under the AP State Housing Corporation, and which is now continued in Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, that's why they are number 1 in the overall housing delivery in a very large way. And they also taken institution loan. They have taken from HUDCO. Individuals taking that. The agencies have taken the loan, and then in turn they will try to take care of that instead of the financial institution take the burden. So the intermediary has taken that particular worry over there. In the case of the Kerala one, the whole funding for the LIFE project has been done by all the urban local bodies have taken that. So they in turn with the beneficiaries will sort out the repayment issues between themselves. So there are various methodology. So it is not necessarily a risk mitigation at 2 levels have happened over there. We can learn these aspects in a big way. And 4 lakhs is a small number. It's a very big number.
Yeah. Thank you, sir. Thank you. We'll have Hari, do you want to say something or just?
No, the structure, Mike explained the structure. This is the structure we have known. Suresh is right. See, if only this has been given by HUDCO, for example, for not to the builder. It has been given at that what Debarpita called the retail housing loan. I am saying you remove transaction costs. Try and see if you can work through CREDAI and institutions like that. Today, NAREDCO exists. They will give you the right kind of builders with credentials that are right. And as I said, the economics are clear today. Even today, I can tell you, you can build at 1,200 rupees per square foot. It's possible. In ISKCON Chennai, we are building 32,000 square feet of guest houses, and the total cost is only 1,770 rupees per square foot. But with a lot of things that the frills I can remove and still get to 1,200.
1,200, very easily we can do it.
Easily we can do, Sureshji, we know this. So this myth of some 1,800, 2,000, it is given to financial lenders in order that, we can negotiate better. That's all we do, Builders will say 2,200, 2,400 per square foot. In order to see that, and they don't know. Most lending people have not understood how we can, juggle these figures. And anyway, so Kirtibhai, for you, my last submission, Kirtibhai, for you. If there is one single thing you take away from me, at least in this evening, I will say there is no want of funds in the government. There is 70 lakh crores. That is all we need for 10 crore, 100 million people, 100 million families, 10 crore, whatever, homes, right? I'm saying this can be easily done by the government. And I think somebody said, I think Mr. Raman said, let's not give it free. Anything that's given free will be taken for granted. Put some 20% something and make the people pay only that much in order that it's priced.
Chandra, for information, phase 1, they have spent 8 lakh crores. 2 lakh crore is the subsidy component, by the way. And in the PMAY 2.0, they are expecting 10 lakh crores to be invested.
They have not, they have allocated, they have not still fully given the money. We know this also. But it's very, very small, Sureshji. If I am sitting as a union...
We can make it 70 easily. No problem.
Exactly. As an additional secretary of the union government, the kind of money I am handling. This is a pittance, this kind of money. Somewhere somebody is obfuscating, as I said, and I say that again. So, Kirtibhai, this is one thing. Second thing you have to tell them is, same like in Sri Lanka, the government has to say, we will not give out tenders. We will give it to institutions like HUDCO and others and ensure that there is accountability that they bring. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you. We must end now. Kalyan sir, before we close, may I request you that based on your deep understanding on this PMAY-2 that we are putting together, this document, your contribution will be very useful on the financing side. If you could find time to do that, we'll be very grateful.
I would love to. I'd love to be part of the thing, and wherever possible, I'll definitely do Kirtibhai, and I'll work with you very closely.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. It's a very kind. Manashi was saying something.
Kirtibhai, call me Kalyan. I'm very young.
I'm very young too. So.
He is younger than you are. What is this? You can't get younger than.
We are the youngest sitting over there. Okay, nothing to worry.
Absolutely. Those two are the children in the group. Both of them are under 30, under 25, I think.
Absolutely.
Manashi was saying something.
Yeah, sorry.
I just wanted to say that what this webinar and a lot of other, observations point out is that certainly one size doesn't fit all. So we've got to look at different geographies. Yeah. And we've got to look at, the solutions which already are existing and which can happen. And so then I think, the government has to really work with a long rope and look at like Hari was saying, that look at more the accountability factor once having, defined the goals. And let, a million flowers bloom in different ways. And I think that's the key to the whole thing, rather than coming up with prescriptions, which, people sort of feel, even though if they're called guidelines, institutions feel that they must follow them because, instead of guidelines, it becomes kind of prescriptions and binding. So I think to work around these kind of programs in a very different way. And that is, I think, a message which needs to be conveyed to the central government. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Finally, we are closing the shop. Thank you again.
Finally, thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Take care,
Dr.
everybody.
Debarpita Roy
Nice to
and
see you all.
Rashmi Kundu, big thanks.
Yeah. Thanks, Bhuma and Chitrakshi, for everything that you do. Hmm?
You all.
Bhai Saab, Suresh Saab, I'll phone you up tomorrow, huh?
He will not take the phone if you called.
No. So I'll take it. Kirti will take it. You call me at 7 o'clock, 7 in the morning.
If you want 5 o'clock, I'm
4 o'clock.
And he will write at 3 a.m. Suresh
Because
ji. You are buying trouble.
I'm kind of 8 o'clock, 8 in the morning. A lot of activities. Okay. 7 o'clock in the morning. Okay.
Okay, I'll call you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye, Ben.
Okay. Good
Bye-bye,
night,
thank you.
everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Manashri, such a pleasure to
Thank
see
you,
you.
Manashri, for joining. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye,
Michael, 81 years is not too much. We are the two in 81. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you and me and Kirti, we're all in the 80 plus.
Right.
I'm very proud. I'm the oldest. 82.
Absolutely.
Yes. I think
So,
you're the oldest of us. Yes.
Right.
Good.
thank you.
Good.
Hari
Thank
Saab,
you.
हमें बात करना है. We'll
Sure.
call you tomorrow.
Sure.
Thank you.
I'll come. Sure. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael.
Okay. Thank
We
you.
sign off.
Thanks a
We
lot.
sign
Good
off.
night.
Yes, we'll sign off. Thank you, Suresh ji. I'll see you next week.
Yeah, I'm there from 12th evening. 13th is
lovely.
going to be with the student chapter day in BMS
Correct.
College of Engineering.
Correct,
And for
correct.
14th, 16th, I'm there for the Congress from beginning till end. Whatever
course.
role you want me to play. You want any number of volunteers, our Ashok Kumar and the team
Yeah.
will give it team over. I told them to coordinate with
Wonderful.
you. You can
And
give
yes,
around 50
I'll
to
speak
70
to
youngsters, young men and women with uniform. They'll be happy to help you. They'll be
Correct.
very important volunteers. Even 100 volunteers.
Are you coming alone or is Nirda coming with you?
Yeah, Nirda is coming.
Wonderful.
Excellent.
We'll catch up next week. Thanks, Michael Slingsby. Delighted.
Thank you, Michael. Michael, such a pleasure. I couldn't see your face though.
Yeah.
No,
He can turn.
I'm not sure which button to turn on.
Okay.
Okay, but good to see you, Suresh, after many
No,
years.
just put video on, it will come on. Is there a camera there?
Yes,
Yes,
I
camera,
saw
but he's
is my camera
Put the
not
camera
on?
on, your
Sorry.
face will come.
I know he knows, but he's
Let
sitting in
me-
something where he can't turn it on.
Okay, good. We'll
All
build on it.
Thank you.
We'll be in
Chitrakshi.
touch. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody. Good night.
Bye.